Hey guys, Coach Kurt. So I had mentioned that I was going to make this video when I did the wooden dummy training video that I did a couple months back. But let's talk about the throwing dummy for training. And you will see top right corner. This is out of Russia, I think. This guy's a Sambo practitioner, and I think they're selling their model or version of their throwing dummy. And I thought it's a cool training dummy. I wish I could get it here in the United States, but I can't find it anywhere. If you guys recognize the video and say, hey, this is this style of throwing dummy by this company name, let me know. That'd be awesome. And bottom right, you will see not everything can be trained on the throwing dummy. A lot of the takedowns and throws you see in the bottom right are going to be your Aikido, Hapkido, Taiho Jutsu, wrist and arm type throws. And the throwing dummy is very useful training tool, extremely useful, except that you're only going to be doing mostly your arm and hip type throws. You know, there's several variations of those type of throws. And you're going to have a hard time getting those done on a throwing dummy. And another downfall of the training dummy or throwing dummy is that you're not going to get the same kind of resistance that you would with a live training partner. In no way, shape, or form am I suggesting you should replace throwing or practicing with a a training partner. It's just taking some of these throws can be very difficult, especially as you get older. You know, I'm 53. I don't like taking a lot of throws anymore. And, you know, no matter what age you are, taking these kind of throws really add up, and they can be hard on the body. So the training that you get from a throwing dummy is terrific. Also, during COVID, you know, stuff like this is extremely efficient and useful. Now, you're still, like you see here, I'm practicing reps. I was getting reps in on spreading the arms, practicing breaking the kazushi. I'm leaning the dummy forward a little bit so it doesn't flop around. I'm balancing it. See how I'm even doing the practice of the throw, just getting it up on my hip, loading it. This is with the sleeve. So this particular dummy has the gi, and you know I have another dummy without the gi because I'm that lazy that I can't just take the gi off of my supple speed dummy. Terrific dummy, by the way. The supple dummies, all their dummies are amazing. Probably the best on the market outside of the one that I was talking about in the top right corner. I would love to find out what kind of dummy that is. It looks super practical. The Sambo guys doing throws that you might not as easily be able to perform on a standard throwing dummy. And again, I talk about the bottom right window. You see me doing more of your Hapkido, Aikido, you know, wrist locks, arm bar takedowns, that kind of stuff. You're not going to get that ability from a training dummy, or not very effectively anyway. You play with it. You do what you got to do when you don't have a training partner. And again, that is the huge benefit of having a throwing dummy. And now you see that I'm practicing temiwaza a little bit. You know, not in judo, of course, but you Japanese jiu-jitsu people, your Aikido, Hapkido, Taiho Jutsu, these practicing systems still use a temiwaza, which is vital point striking or off-balancing or distracting strikes. It's important to know that your temiwaza isn't necessarily about knocking somebody out. Although, you know, people have been knocked out with a jab, but I'm not Mike Tyson by any stretch, so I don't see me being able to knock somebody out with a jab. But your temiwaza is a great way to distract, off balance, get somebody to move a particular direction, so you're breaking their balance, disrupting their balance, your kazushi. And you see that the gi is very different from no gi. A lot of these throws translate, but like this throw I'm doing here where I'm using the sleeves, like if I'm doing a double sleeve throw, there's no way I'm going to do that no gi. You just can't hold on to somebody's wrists that way. I highly recommend that, especially if you do both. Like, I'm a big believer in doing both gi and no gi grappling, no matter what style of judo, jiu-jitsu, sambo, Taiho Jutsu you do. I recommend that you play with both gi and no gi. Now, you don't have to be as lazy as I am, where I actually have two dummies. You can just take a gi. Putting that dummy or putting that gi on the dummy can be a little obnoxious because of the shoulders. That's a size 5 gi that I have there. Just a random super inexpensive judo gi that I got off Amazon, just the top. And I am throwing that on the dummy so I can practice the lapel grabs and the sleeve grabs. And super important. Now you see how the elbow is slightly bent on the supple dummy. That's also kind of an interesting feature. Again, probably the best dummy that you can get, at least domestically here in the United States, that I have found. If you think of a better dummy or a dummy you like even better, please put it in the comments. Tell me what experience you have with training dummies and which ones are your favorite. And again, this, you can do some groundwork with this as well, just not as successfully as you can with an actual ground grappling dummy. And I have one of those, and I may do a video on that as well. I just don't play with it as nearly as much as the throwing dummy. And I try to do the throwing dummy a couple times a week. You know, I incorporate it in as part of my warm-ups or cool-downs from my regular training. And again, don't forget Atemiwaza. You'll see that I'm using some Atemiwaza in this video too. Just, again, because even though you've got a throwing dummy and you've got to simulate the idea, I consider a throwing dummy reminiscent if you're doing dry fires training with your firearm. And just to sidetrack again, I call the kind of Atemiwaza I just call it the VA strikes for fun. And you see the bottom right, the VA commercials from the 80s. I've obviously aged myself because I remember those when I was a kid and a teenager. The VA strike is basically a pop. I like to aim for the forehead or the nose or the chin. Open hand strike usually. I mean, you can totally close fist it. But for self-defense, I tend to prefer open hand strikes or palm strikes. But don't forget that. Now, what I was saying is I liken the throwing dummy to like if you were laser training or dry fire training. I have CERT pistols, which is the laser training pistol. It absolutely doesn't replace live fire practice with a firearm, but this is very reminiscent of that. You get some really quality reps in with a training partner that is not going to argue or complain about how hard you throw, especially if you're doing something like a suplex, where if somebody doesn't have just really good ukemi, or if you're off on your throw, they can land on their head and hurt their neck, break their neck. You don't want that. There are certain throws that I don't like practicing with a live opponent, and I definitely don't like being the uke for in certain throws. So if there are any particular throws that you want to practice 100% full force, landing them on their head, or even, there's a good example, you know, there are judo throws and then there are jujitsu throws. A lot of old school jujitsu, Hapkido throws, Aiki jujitsu, Taiho Jutsu, not so much because Taiho Jutsu is for law enforcement, and we talk about it needs to be objectively reasonable, but you can juice it up. A lot of those throws are old school, the way they did it back in the day on the battlefield, the samurai. You're purposely breaking the arm, you're purposely dropping them on their head, and you absolutely don't want to practice that with a real person, or you're not going to want anyone. No one's going to train with you, or you'll end up in jail. So the throwing dummy, I can't rave about it enough. Again, this is the supple throwing dummy that I'm using. The one that was no gi that you saw me training with, my black dummy, it's a little taller, a little heavier, by at least 10, 20 pounds heavier than the supple dummy. I forget where I got that. I think I got it on Amazon. I just don't recall. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked it. Please like, subscribe, and share. And everybody, please stay safe.
Let's roll. Hey. Let's be careful.